Good morning this morning, my love muffins.
Good morning. Good morning.
And how is everybody today on week 5 of our 6-week celebration of our unique God traits that flow through us? And today is Love Day, so you know what charm you'll be getting for your tags. Love is the fundamental truth. Divine, unconditional love is from which and as which we are all made. From which and as which all things are made. As Ernest Holmes said, creation is not making something out of nothing. Creation is making something out of one thing, out of God, out of love. So love is the central theme of all transformation religions, because love is the key to spiritual awakening and to spiritual enlightenment. It's not so much the discovery of God, or even the discovery that God is love, but the discovery that what is true of God is also true of us, that we are love, that is our nature. We want the world to be a better place? Have to be a better person in it, meaning live more from and as our true nature, our nature of love. But we often confuse states of being, our inner spiritual nature, unconditional love, a source to which we are always connected and which can never be depleted, and our human expression of love, a worldly experience which is always fluctuating. Sometimes it's visibly abundant, and at other times it's noticeably lacking or absent. As truth seekers and spiritual journeyers, we've mistakenly come to think of unconditional love as the love we should give and as the love that we want to receive. I mean, who wouldn't want to receive unconditional love? We long to express and experience judgment-free, ridicule and rejection-free, and obligation and expectation-free love, unconditional love. And often we use our perception of its presence or its absence in our life as a measure of our success of becoming, of awakening, of evolving on our spiritual journey. And this can actually compromise rather than enable our embodying and living the truth of who we are. Because we actually strive toward, in this human expression, what we can't possibly achieve. So we travel a flawed path to get to where we imagine we want to go. And as we attempt to convert our human love to unconditional love, we are constantly judging ourselves as being unsuccessful. It's simply not going to happen in human form. Divine love, unconditional love, is a state of being. It's an attribute of the Creator. It's part of our nature, part of our DNA. It is infinite and eternal. It's predictable and dependable, never changing. But our human expression and experience of love, even under the best of circumstances, fluctuates. It's temporary and changing. It's unpredictable, and it can be undependable. We know how fragile and unstable our human expression of love can be. Just look at our cultural humor that we have about marriage, which is one of the most sacred vows to love. I'm sure you've heard many of these a million times, but what's the difference between love and marriage? Love is blind And marriage is an eye-opener. Now, what does that say? Already we're on a roll talking about love being something that maybe has some harsh realities to it. A son says to his father, "Daddy, why are all those cars beeping their horns?" And the father said, "Because there's a wedding going on." And the son said, "But don't we beep horns as a warning signal?" And his father said, "Exactly, son." Where did these jokes come from if we talk about our predictable, reliable love? One woman said, "Once I gave my husband the silent treatment for an entire week, at the end of which he declared, 'Hey, we're getting along pretty great this week, aren't we?'" There we go. There's conditional love. Fluctuating love. One person's temper tantrum is another person's bliss. How about a woman noting her husband's love for football said, "You'd probably miss my funeral if it was on game day." He said, "Don't be silly. Do you think I'd schedule your funeral on game day?" I mean, conditional love. One of my all-time favorite examples I came across last year was a sign in a jewelry store window that said, "Wedding rings for rent." Human love. So much for being predictable. So much for being reliable. So much for being unconditional love. Or here's an example that I know lots of you have seen 1,000 times, but it's one of my favorite examples of integrated 3H, head, hand, heart, love.
I love my sister, yes I do. I love my sister, yes I do. I love my sister, yes I do.
True love. I love my sister. My sister's here. For those of you who don't know her, Romeo Cricket in the back. I encourage you all to get a hug from her if she can tolerate it. She's lived in an ashram with as close to a living Jesus as we know today, and has seen and has become an amazing hands-on healer. For those of you that haven't been here for very long, Cricket lined up at a door to give people hugs years and years and years ago, and we were taking pictures of her. I have a painting of it in my house. We pointed the camera at her, couldn't see her. Could only see this vague ghostly shape that you could see everything through.
Oh my God.
When you pointed the camera at other people, you could see them perfectly. We'd go and walk around other positions in the room, pointed at people, fine. Pointed at Cricket, she just disappeared into this wispy, ghosty kind of shape. She is a young lady who has walked a spiritual journey and has got very close to unconditional love, and still struggles with day-to-day living and being frustrated with herself. And this is part of our journey of love. And yet, love is fundamental truth of the universe. But we're human. That's why it's risky business using our expression and experience of unconditional love as a measurement of our success in living as and from the truth of who we are. Dan McKinnon, who is an American screenwriter and a film producer, once said, "Be aware that a halo only has to fall a few inches to become a noose." And our halos, our lofty ideals, our lofty beliefs of who we are and who we should be and how we should be, that we should give and receive unconditional love, can choke the inspiration and confidence out of our spiritual journey and our spiritual unfoldment. A halo only has to slip, a high ideal only has to slip a couple inches to become a noose. We're humans, we're not angels. Yes, we are spiritual beings, that is the truth of who we are, but we are living a human experience. That is also the truth of who we are. Our challenge is living as and from the truth of who we are by integrating those two aspects of our being. So life can't be a reason to live outside divine truth. Life can't be a reason, life circumstances and conditions can't be a reason to not strive to practice the qualities of our God-given nature: love, peace, joy, harmony. But spirit can't be the reason to not be real. We can't set that bar so high about our spiritual journey and who we're supposed to be and how we're supposed to be that we don't allow for our human qualities to express as real. Loving unconditionally for us in a worldly, physical form is just not real. For God, yes. For us, not so much. I love my sister, yes I do. A couple weeks ago when people were leaving, someone gave me a hug at the door and said, "Goodbye, love meister." And I love that. You know, when we go on our leadership goes on a spiritual retreat, we spend hours and hours until we pick a avatar name for each of us that represents who we want to be, who we see ourselves growing into. And many of you know my avatar name is Maestro, because I don't want to be in charge of anybody. I don't want to think or tell or anybody have any expectations of anybody, but I do want to be part of that harmony of bringing everybody and their uniqueness and their talents and their gifts together in this crescendo of consciousness that shifts our world for the better. So I love that, Love Meister. I've spent my entire career trying to help people recover from attempting to live unrealistic, inauthentic love. That version of love is devastating to people. While it's high-intended and well-intended, such a version of love requires consideration of others. It requires the benefit to others to be of primary importance. And our thoughts, our feelings, our desires to be unimportant. To be successful, you can't be self-indulgent. You have to learn and master self-denial. And research shows we pay a significant price for this type of love. You know the type of love, where you don't speak up for what you want. Where you say, no, it's no problem, it doesn't bother me at all, when it does. We keep all that aside because we don't want to rock the boat, we're taking the high road, we have a million reasons why, but everyone else's thoughts and feelings are important, ours are not. So you have to practice self-denial. Research shows it causes physical and psychological exhaustion from deflecting and denying and attempting to manage and control our feelings. How many of you have been around situations where you're performing so much you can't wait for everybody to go away and be by yourself so you can just relax and breathe? That's not unconditional love. We strive to have that kind of love our whole lives. It causes persistent anxiety and depression. Pronounced feelings of inferiority, of alienation, and of emptiness. It is a systematic weakening and a probable destruction of feelings of self-worth. It causes increasing vulnerability to others, negating our own reality to assert theirs. Have you ever felt like you started out to do something as a nice guy, just to be kind, and pretty soon it's an expectation, and God forbid if you don't do it, it's not an act of love anymore, it's a It causes a diminished sense of self-awareness and a compromised ability to make decisions in our own best interest. And finally, it causes declining inner resources to give our best to the key people, projects, and purpose in our life. Wow, devastating. I spent my entire career as a psychotherapist working with these wounds from people living inauthentic lives. Why such a negative impact? Because this version of love requires that we trade our desires for the pleasure of others. It necessitates that we deliberately and consistently turn off our inner awareness, that we shut down the connection between our thoughts and our feelings and our behavior. We are experts at saying and doing one thing while feeling the direct opposite inside. Smile while we're angry, or the smile on our face even though we feel like we want to cry. We're experts at that incongruency because we've really mastered that ability to control and manage our feelings for the benefit of others. We think for the benefit of ourselves. As I said, high intentions, well intended, but a flawed and misguided path. Because living this formula of love ultimately results in people not feeling loved. How can you feel loved when your whole job is to be inauthentic and make sure everybody else's need is met? It is an example of giving out, but never letting in, never asking for it to come in, never demanding that love come in. There is no replenishment involved in this. There is no cycle of it. How many of you can ask for help? Real easily. Oh my God, could you come over? Could somebody come and bring me dinner? Because how many of you can do that? How many of you, if I said I have a problem next week and I need dinner, would show up at my door with dinner? Raise your hands. We have no problem helping other people, but how many people ask when they have a need or desire? Your needs and desires are unimportant. How can you walk out of that relationship with yourself your entire life with self-worth? No wonder we turn to alcohol and substance abuse and so many ways to numb our feelings of alienation, of loneliness, of emptiness. It's impossible. That's not a consequence of that behavior. We are just like any other generation, the consequence of the beliefs and the values in our generation, right? Pretty pictures to be seen and not heard. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. No sense crying over spilt milk. I mean, all the messages were, suck it up, right? So nobody's to blame. Some people can add horrendous mistreatment stories on top of it. But nobody got out of this generation of life unscathed. But it did form our understanding of what love is and what being loving is. And if we fail to do it, we feel selfish. We feel unloving. We feel inadequate. We feel like we're failing. This is why we can't use it as a measurement. Know the truth? Love is the fundamental truth in the universe that will set us free. Divine, unconditional love, that is our nature, our state of being one with the divine creator and all of creation. So our spiritual unfoldment, our spiritual journey is choosing that our nature of love, our spiritual self, inspires our expression of love, our human self. Not that we become unconditional love, that's the trait, that's the state. But that trait and that state that we're aware is part of our inner being, we find a way to open to it so it inspires our expression of human love. But living as or from love doesn't keep us from having unloving feelings and thoughts and actions. It doesn't keep us from feeling angry and hurt and wounded and frustrated. But because we are aware of this truth of our inner spiritual self, it does keep us from enjoying it. It does keep us from being able to rest easy in it. When we act incongruently with that truth, that is our nature, something in us will get disturbed. It must, on a physiological, neurological basis, in the way that God communicates with us, since God is expressing through us as physical form. And that disturbance will inspire us to look again, to think again, to try again, to seek a better way, to seek oneness and unity and harmony within ourselves, with each other, and with circumstances. Isn't that why we're here in the first place? I bet every single person that came here with a little bit of a void, with a little bit of awareness of something missing, something lacking, maybe a gigantic awareness of something missing, something lacking, knowing that things could be better, they should be better. There's just some sense of they've known their whole lives and been looking for it their whole lives. That is what we're about. Allowing our inner nature to inspire our human expression. I really had it's amazing how I always say to Denise, how can they listen to us preach the same thing every week? I mean, we're more or less saying it's all good, it's all God, it's all love, it's all peace, it's all harmony. Do that and you'll be happy. That's what we say. How can they stand listening to us? And yet every time I read something, I come across a new aha. It's like, oh my God, I get what they're trying to say. And that's our job, really, is to take these words and aspects and qualities of God that are ideals, that we use as measuring sticks, and find that way of what it means in this human expression so that they become things that inspire us effortlessly. Well, one of my favorite on Gaia is my favorite spiritual station, is Ram Dass has, dozen seasons of these mini 5-minute maximum long episodes with beautiful photography of pearls of wisdom that he shares. And the one I heard the other night was, when we understand everything, it's all a way of coming into union. Everyone and everything becomes a vehicle to unify us in oneness. And what happens is we begin to shift. Instead of clinging so tightly to fixed opinions and judgments and absolutes of right and wrong, our perspectives begin to broaden. And we let go of our desire and our need to manipulate people, to control circumstances. We begin to open ourselves to another's otherness. And we allow connections and happenings to arise from this mysterious place that's greater than we are, and simply journey through them until the next connection and happening arises. We stop trying to wrestle circumstances and people into the way we want them to be. That's one of my favorite sayings I used to say all the time. I can be the me I want to be if you'll be the you I want you to be. That's an example of our conditional love, right? It's easy to be an angel if nobody ruffles your feathers, right? So if I can orchestrate the way the whole world behaves, I can appear to be practicing unconditional love, right? But that's not the way it works. But what happens is we begin to loosen our grip on shoulds. Anybody in the right mind, anybody who is raised with any sophistication, anybody who has any manners, anybody who has any social values, this is what they would do. And we start to loosen our grip on this. And we begin to be intrigued by other people's otherness. And he described everyday scenarios, like his was, when you walk into the bank and you get in the long line with a very slow teller to cash your check. He asks, did you get caught in walking into the bank and seeing the teller? Or did you loosen your grip and unify enough to see a fellow soul who also happens to be a very slow bank teller? There's not very many times, especially when they're slow, that I see a fellow soul, right? Conditional love. That's why we can't be conditional love. We can't behave with conditional love, but it is who we are. So when we are impatient with the slow teller, we feel justified because that's the human part of us, that I'm in a hurry. We can't deny. We spent a lifetime trying to deny. We probably acted very polite and didn't say anything and smiled and chatted with people, even though we were about ready to do one of the SWAT routines in the room, but because we're very good at that. But we're human, so we're allowed to have those feelings, and they do not reflect on our lack of spirituality at all. Quite the opposite. It's God's voice to say, out of line. You're moving further and further out of line with the truth of who you are. And as we loosen our grip on why were we in such a hurry? Why did we have to get out of there? Why did that person have to hurry up? Why do we have to be mad that we picked this line and it went 2 people slower? Looking at our lives is part of our spiritual journey, and as we do, we begin to loosen our grip. I had a friend, Zarina Naruna. She was a clinical director of the program I worked into. I was so jealous of her. I'd work until 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'd go at the speed of light. She would walk. She'd saunter. She just sauntered places. She had a meeting, she'd saunter. I was like, how can you do that? How can you glide through life? How can you not get riled up? How can you? She was a vision of what I thought it would feel like to not have to manipulate every single circumstance. Alan Cohen, who is one of my favorite contemporary New Thought gurus, in his book, A Daily Dose of Sanity, told a story of his roommate, Lou Chalapa. Lou taught English in a public high school, and he was very discouraged in what he saw as a lack of love in the world. So he convinced the administration to let him teach a new course he called Humanities. And the subject of Humanities was his students and their lives. And Lou put 2 chairs up in the front of the classroom, and he invited students to sit with him and just have a heart-to-heart conversation about what was going on in their lives. That's what the course was. His nature of unconditional love inspired his expression of love, requesting and creating this course called Humanities. And he also created a variety of heart-to-heart activities to build connection and to open channels for expressing love. And one of my personal favorites, which I think we should do around here, was at Halloween, where he invited a group of senior citizens to attend his class dressed as teenagers and asked the students to dress as seniors. Can you see that? Wouldn't that be fun? I'd love to spike my hair, do all that stuff, and go into class and see them walking around with their little... Humanities rapidly became the most popular class. Lou gave up English to teach 6 humanities classes a day, and within a year, they soon needed to hire 2 more full-time teachers. We know on our inside when we are living out of harmony with authentic, realistic, true love. Of course, choosing love aligns with our nature, even when you're frustrated and discouraged and disappointed with what you see as a lack of love in the world. Ram Dass also explained, when we seek enlightenment, this was very helpful to me. When we seek enlightenment, anxiety or depression or frustration can actually seem to be more prevalent because we're not feeling the love that is part of our nature. We're going through these steps of holding this high bar of unconditional love and trying to be it and becoming aware when we're not. But he said, really what you have to understand is we are living manifestations of consciousness evolving. So what's happening as you start this journey is the old is disappearing. And the new is emerging and unfolding. But we haven't fully tasted and known our divinity yet. So what we can feel at this stage is that the zeal seems to be going out of a lot of things. We used to get so much pleasure from going to the movies, having dinner parties, golfing, doing all sorts of things, having my car, and we would milk those things for the fullness that we could get out of life. But as we grow into the truth, into God and good and love of who we are, as we journey toward this oneness and this union, these things can begin to just feel like stuff. We can't find the same meaning in them. We no longer really need them for life to be meaningful. But because we haven't yet had that filling sense of divinity, it feels like a void. It feels like we're being cheated. And we, of course, being so expert, blame ourselves for doing something wrong. Really, once we begin to understand that it's all about union, that every circumstance, every person, every situation is nothing more than a vehicle for us to travel toward union, then just being alive becomes enough. Can you imagine just being alive is enough? Just being alive, just being happy that you're alive and you're on the adventure. What is enough. We begin to feel that sense of union with everyone, and you will feel the love at that time. Not hold it out as an ideal. You'll feel it flow through you. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine a time where you feel so connected to that inner truth that that divinity begins to be part of your actual experience? So, I took a quote from a book I was reading this week that I loved. It said, "Can you imagine the song of a bird, even when it is just a yolk in an egg?" Gives new meaning to my breakfast this morning. But can you imagine the song of a bird when it's just a yolk in an egg? That's our job at this stage in our spiritual development. Can we imagine the flow of divinity through us and as us, the ease of union and love flowing through us and as us? Right now, right here in this world, with all the stuff, with the lack of money, with the political stuff, with religious stuff, can you imagine? Can you picture that right now? That is our tool. So your mission this week, if you so choose to accept it, is that our nature of love inspire our expression of love. Sure, we're using the right measure. No such thing as unconditional love. But let our nature of unconditional love inspire our expression of love. And fully taste our divinity. I believe, I believe, I believe. Say it with me. Let our nature of love inspire our expression of love. Let our nature of love express our... I already feel it. You want the world to be a better place? We have to be a better person in it. Why? Because the world's made up of the people in it. And the advancement of our human family can only come from the advancement of ourselves. And I am very proud and honored to be part of this love muffin journey congregation. We can't go back and make a new start, but we can start now and make a new ending. We are the people. Now is the time. This is the way. Namaste, my love muffins.